What's up, everybody? Welcome to college football's last call. You guys, it's hard to believe, but the 2023 regular season has now come to its conclusion. It's been a wild ride, concluded with 4 unbeaten teams, including the amazing and unbelievable feat that our Georgia Bulldogs pulled off 3 straight years, going 12-0. How freaking sweet it is. To commemorate the end of the season, we have a special guest joining us in the house tonight, along with Jason and Lawrence. We have the Last Call Show's producer, who's been working behind the glass diligently all season to keep us straight and keep track of all this nonsense that we keep talking about week in and week out. That's right. Live from the Sports Barn in sunny San Diego, California, the 5-time All-American Nick Adams in the house. Guys, what's up? It's good to see y'all's faces. Nick, great to see your face, man.
What's happening?
Welcome, Nick Adams. So, little known secret to live a scene behind the curtain is Axe, the 5-time All-American, has been a little bit of a sounding board for me throughout the season with some insight onto the 12 takeaways with Jam Coffee, and also I bounced a few ideas of the sucker bet off of him. Mostly the ones I bounce off him end up winning. So, Axe, appreciate the help and the administration. So, welcome to Last Call.
Appreciate it, Larry. My pleasure, bud.
Lawrence, I'm glad you clarified that, because I thought you were just shitting on Nick right off the rip there and trying to blame your shitty bets on him. So I'm glad you clarified that and gave him some credit. But Nick, happy to help you on board. For those of you that don't know, Nick and I lived together at the University of Georgia twice, in fact. So going back a long way. But yeah, great weekend. Great Dogs win, and the 3rd season in a row going 12-0. Before we get into anything, I just want to say our last regular season loss was in October of 2020, to put things in perspective. Special time we're in right now.
We'll have celebrated 4 Christmases since our last regular season loss, Jason.
Yeah.
Jason, you and Nick, y'all were freshman roommates in Russell Hall, right?
That is correct.
You remember the room number?
We were on the 3rd floor. I remember that. I don't remember the room number. Nick, do you?
No, I do not. I do not remember the room number.
And then we did our last semester together as well, out by Allen's Hamburgers in Normaltown. Is that
That's
called
right.
Normaltown?
Yeah, I think it was Holman Avenue, right? Wasn't that the street?
I believe so.
Right.
I believe so.
The 5th year victory lap football season. I love it. So Nick, you're in San Diego. Obviously, you're huge Dogs fans like us. Do people give a crap out there about college football? And do they even know what Georgia is other than what you tell them?
Yeah, that's kind of tough. There are certain people that care. Obviously my family that all lives out here, we all care. And actually there's a Georgia bar in our neighborhood. Actually, the restaurant right down the street from us is the Georgia Alumni Bar. And so we've gone to watch a few games there, and it's they're all Georgia people that have come here. So, they're all fans. But to put it in perspective, I watched this game at a end of the year softball party for my daughter's softball team. And party of course happens right in the middle of the Dogs Georgia Tech game. And but I'm like, I gotta watch. So people who were hosting the party were like, sure, we'll put it on for you. And so I'm just, yeah, exactly. Like, what channel? When does it start? And it's like, I'm watching the game, I got a sweatshirt on that says Georgia football on it, whatever. And I'll still get people being like, so what's Georgia ranked? And which team are you cheering for again?
They're ranked right there.
So it just cracks me up. And then people be having a conversation, and I'll be walking by and I'll go like, yes. And they'll like start. I'll be like, "Oh, sorry, just watching the game. My bad."
Yeah, California living, right? You can go get a game at 9 a.m. with some bacon and eggs, a Bloody Mary, and still have the whole day in front of you to go surfing or whatever it is. I've watched a few games out in Newport Beach before, so it's not too shabby. You get done with the late games early as well, so it's you got some bonuses there.
For sure.
The three of us were in Boddy Dodd section 224. Had a great time. Lawrence, Jason, who wants to start off with the takeaways from the game?
Yeah, I'll get us started here. So it was a great day. It was kind of a last minute tailgate that we put together. What was quite amazing is we started talking through the whole situation of going to the game and looking for tickets. our host here, Josh, sends me a link and says, "Hey, we can buy tickets through the Georgia Tech season ticket website." So we avoided the secondary market, and I hate to break the secrets that may come haunt us in 2 years from now. But we bought 8 together, and then some other people bought 2 more in the same section, and then some other friends bought 5 a section over, and we ended up taking over 2 rows in section 224. I will say, in terms of the game day environment at Boddy Dodd, everything was great down there. Brent Key's done a good job to get the crowd hyped up. The tailgating atmosphere was a lot of fun. Once you're in the stadium, the stadium in-game entertainment was great. A lot of music. My kids had a blast. Jordan Kessler was dancing her head off, and we had a great time. But what they cannot handle is a crowd of more than 40,000 people trying to get into that stadium. It took us, 35, 40 minutes? It was harder to get into that stadium than it was getting into Mercedes-Benz for the Georgia-Alabama National Championship in 2018, whenever that was.
Lawrence, letting your secret out won't haunt me because I'm never going back to that shit box again. Though I say that every 2 years, and then they bring me right back in. It was very difficult. I actually walked right in. I went in the wrong gate, and it was impossible then to get over to 224 for a engineering school. They've got some really shitty flow throughout that stadium. So the game was fun. It was cold. It was windy. I left at halftime because I had to take care of a child and take said child home who was overserved on Coors Lights.
Serving beer in the stadium, it's always a cool thing. I mean, like, we're all obviously 40-something years old, can buy beer wherever we want, but being able to have it at the ready in a college game like that is just pretty unique. And yes, some people in our group took more advantage of it than others, which led to you leaving early. I thought the tailgate scene was great too. Lawrence secured a spot over at Peter's deck, which was a stone's throw from the entrance. We had kids with us that were just kind of cruising around the campus, going to fraternity parties, checking out chicks. You know, you had all the makings of a really fun day. Game itself, look, I mean, was I ever concerned about the outcome? No. Was it closer than we wanted? Yes. Was it super vanilla game plan from Georgia? Yes. Was it part of Kirby's long con? Yes. Did Georgia Tech play good? Yes. Entertainment, I agree with you, Lawrence. Lights, the music, everything. So I give the game an A in terms of just the environment. I think that there's a lot of things that Georgia can work on and clean up for next week. But look, a win's a win. Governor's Cup, Governor Kemp handing out the hardware. So that's that. Nick, on TV, what did you see?
I mean, like you said, very vanilla play calling. I would say the penalties were what was irking me a lot. Inopportune time penalties. And like you said, I was never worried, really. I mean, granted, I do watch the game with kind of a bit of a nervous tick just because of that's who I am. But it got to the point towards the end where I was at this, party, as I said, and I'm just annoyed because I want to like half watch, and I can't half watch because we can't put it away. Like that, what was the penalty on the Bell TD with the man downfield or whatever?
Cedric Van Pan.
Yeah, that was killer. And it was just like, all right. But I mean, like you said, never worried. A win's a win, so I was pleased.
Well, part of it was that game just seemed to drag on and on and on. I feel like even though they're the same family of networks, the ESPN games seemed to go a little bit quicker. ABC just kept having more TV timeout after TV timeout. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that maybe we didn't take Georgia Tech very serious, but we sat 5 of our top offensive players. Again, still missing a couple of guys on defense. We didn't run any sexy schemes in defense to blitz Haynes King. Carson Beck had the least amount of dropbacks and least amount of pass attempts all season long. There wasn't any offensive schemes to get receivers open, as evidenced by the fact I think we only had 5 receivers tally stats on the day, where if you go look at every other game this season, Beck's hit 9 to 10 guys. I think the strategy for this game was get in, get out, work on a few things that you need to work on. Don't put anything that Alabama hasn't seen on tape, and try to get back to Athens without any major injuries. So yeah, it was closer than we had hoped, but hey, good on Tech. I think they are moving in the right direction with Brent Key, but they're not yet quite at the point where they've garnered our full attention to kick their ass.
Well, they are moving in the right direction, and the only reason is you couldn't go in the other direction, right? They haven't been to a bowl game since 2018, so there's only one way to go. Yeah, put things in perspective again. You had Brock sitting, you had Ladd sitting, your two top receivers, Rara sat, Tate Ratledge sat, Jamon Davis-Johnson, and then you played two true freshmen inside linebackers most of the game. Again, just to take it even a step further, it was 31-13 to start the fourth quarter, right? It was about to be 38-13, and we had a freaky tipped interception at the goal line.
Pass interference.
Yeah, sure. This thing could have been really ugly. Whatever. Got the W. Move on. We should get all of the. I don't want to steal the Jay Stein injury report, but I feel we'll be a lot healthier this week going into the marquee matchup and SEC championship game of the year. I will say Haynes King played very well. I think Buster Faulkner called a really good game for Tech. There were some things that definitely gave us trouble, and it is somewhat concerning with Jalen Milroe, a running quarterback, coming up this week. But I think there's also a lot of things on defense that we could get cleaned up. On offense, we can't have stupid turnovers. And on defense, we've really got to, I'd say, play a lot more disciplined in terms of maintaining their lanes against the running threat. So move on and kick some ass this weekend.
So in terms of the Jay Stein injury report, I mean, yeah, you brought up the four names. Everybody's talking about it right now. Ladd, Brock, Rara, Tate, Ratledge. Look, they're all going to play this weekend. Every last one of them. I think they all probably could have played last weekend against Tech if we needed them. You're telling me that Brock Bowers is not going to play in this SEC championship game, or Ladd McConkey? I just don't believe that that's even going to be remotely a possibility. Keeping them out. Rara, he'll be back too. So I think we're going to be at full strength. I mean, Jason, you said a couple weeks ago, we're trending in a healthy direction. I feel like, we sat those guys out at Tech because we could, and we knew it wasn't going to harm us, get them another week of get right. So let's roll. Kendall Milton, guys, no one mentioned his name. That guy was freaking amazing Saturday night. I mean, we've dogged him on this show week in and week out. First half of the season, his trajectory is pointing straight up though. So getting him
at
back,
the right time,
getting him physical, coming at the right time.
Yeah, a healthy Kendall Milton is a dangerous running back. I read today that his PFF score, for whatever it's worth, is the highest single season PFF score for a Georgia running back since Nick Chubb. So he's really come on the last couple of games. I think he's got 200-yard games in the last 3. If he can keep it up, our offensive line, again, is playing really strong. We continue to rotate guys through. I think our weakest offensive lineman right now is probably Xavier Truss, and he's kind of our Swiss Army knife. You can put him anywhere. So as long as our offensive line can give Carson Beck time, as long as they can continue to create some holes for Kendall Milton and Dejon to get through, we will continue to be an offensive threat in every game that we go into.
So our game. Go ahead, Nick.
So I was just going to say, speaking on Milton, I don't know if y'all saw, but they did like a run blitz or something on him, and he did this jump cut and got by 2 guys, had a massive gain. Like he was always just a straight kind of downfield runner, but I like seeing him cutting more and, doing more things than I feel like he was able to do when maybe he wasn't fully healthy. So really
he's got quick feet like Jason Gans on the dance floor in Veal.
That's right. That's right.
I'd like to see him wax and chop.
I'm sure it could.
So we all left our houses, between 3 and 4 to head down to Tech. Got to catch a lot of the Michigan-Ohio State game, which everybody was watching. The eyes of the country were on it. Nick, that's early your time, 9 a.m. Did you wake up with some eggs, some kegs, and some Michigan versus Ohio State? I
absolutely watched, I think, pretty much every snap of that game. I will say that was just run. They were just like banging their heads against each other that whole game. And I don't know if it's the Michigan thing. I don't know if that's because they don't trust, no Harbaugh. So Sharon Moore's out there trying to maybe like not lose the game, not make a bad decision. So he's just like, well, we just go with the run the whole time. Because I think McCarthy can make some good throws for them. And, they didn't really let him throw it that much, to be honest. And they haven't actually really all season.
McCarthy, in my opinion, is a pretty good quarterback. They did say something during that game that he's got 4.4 speed, which, and then I saw a tweet shortly following that says if he's got 4.4 speed, then I'm 6'9". I think the biggest thing that jumped out at me in that game again is Ryan Day just being a terrible coach. He's got the second best player in the country in Marvin Harrison, and I think he targeted him like 3 or 4 times. I don't know if Michigan's playing that good a defense, but you got to find ways to get the ball in his hands. And when they did, good things happened. They just didn't do it enough. And then they think they wasted it. They didn't call a timeout when they should towards the end of the game when Michigan had that 6-minute drive to essentially seal it. Listen, quite honestly, again, neither of those teams scare me. Last year, the Ohio State team with C.J. Stroud at the helm was a lot scarier than they are with Kyle McCord. But I think their playoff chances are now slim to none, and Slim just walked out the door. So Michigan moves on to Iowa, and Ohio State will go play probably Fiesta Bowl or something like that.
Hey, Larry, don't tell the ESPN playoff predictor that Ohio State's out of it, because I don't know. I ran a few of them, and every time, like if 1 or 2 of the top team loses, Ohio State's number 4 all of a sudden. I'm like, how?
I see no path.
I
see no path to Ohio State getting it. I agree with pretty much everything you guys just said. I only watched the first half of the game. Neither team scares me at all. I think Georgia would boat race both of those teams. I agree with you, Lawrence. How do you not get the ball in Marvin Harrison Jr.? There should be 12 balls thrown at him during the course of the game. So kind of on Ryan Day. That brand of football is just boring. And without C.J. Stroud, that team is significantly different. Ohio State.
Yeah, Day losing to the interim coach is a tough pill for those fans to swallow. He might be on his way out, much to all of our chagrin. So as the day continues on, we've got Bama versus Auburn. I'll be honest, I watched 0 plays of that game. It was going on while we were tailgating. But my God, that last couple of minutes, going back on the rewatch and reading the highlights, seeing how it all happened, my goodness. That rivalry just seems every year or not every year, but every so often produces just some crazy, wacky finish. So did any of y'all actually watch that in real time?
I did. Yeah, I was with Lawrence. I stayed next to Lawrence's son.
Yeah, we watched it in the parking lot for the tailgate, the last couple of plays of it. It was crazy.
Yeah, I watched a good bit of it.
So listen, I'm getting ahead of myself here because I know we're really going to cover. The Bama-Georgia game, the Georgia-Bama game coming up this weekend. But if Bama has that hard of a time hanging with Auburn at this point in the season, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, listen. This was Auburn's Super Bowl, and I can't believe how many different ways they tried to screw that up at the very end, and it finally came back to bite them in the ass. On the 10-year anniversary of the kick six, you got what they call it, the Milrow Miracle. I think Hugh Freeze again. Yeah, the mill throw.
I heard.
I think Hugh Freeze again. It comes back to coaching malpractice. I don't know how these guys get it wrong so often. Like he rushed 2 and then had everyone in coverage and still let a guy get open in the back of the end zone. I mean, maybe he pushed off a little bit, but the Iron Bowl always delivers. So hey, Auburn fans get their hearts ripped out once again, and it seems like Nick Saban again has a deal with the devil to pull out a victory like that as he heads into the SEC championship game.
Yeah. So Larry, not only did they rush 2, they had a spy. That was the third guy. He was spying Jalen Milrow in case he scrambled for 31 yards with
like one of the
8 other guys.
One of the 8 guys in the end zone wouldn't have been able to catch him if he was running 30 yards.
Just crazy.
Other top teams hold on and win too. Washington holds on, survives. FSU beats a bad Florida team, although they almost lost to Florida. Oregon wins. Texas, we said hold serve last week. They all held serve again. So it's all coming down to this week. I mean, we got conference championship games. All the big boys are still there. Michigan knocked out Ohio State, but there's still 6 or 7 teams in contention.
Yeah, 17. I mean,
Yep. Go ahead, Gaines.
Yeah. Look, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Oregon, Washington, FSU, and Tejas. Am I missing anyone? No, I don't think so.
No, that's all.
I think well, in Ohio State, according to the playoff
Yeah.
predictor, but
I mean,
I think Texas and Oregon probably look the strongest during the rivalry week. Washington eking out the last minute. Florida State just, without Jordan Travis, they're going to have a tough matchup against Louisville, who just lost to a 6-win Kentucky team. But if they go undefeated, how do you leave them out of the playoff?
Well, that's a good question, because I'm not even getting into this from the Georgia perspective, but what is the actual criteria? Is it the 4 best teams? Is it the 4 most accomplished teams? Is it 4 undefeated Power 5 teams? I don't know what their criteria is anymore, because Georgia's going to beat Alabama this weekend. But if Georgia lost and you are picking the 4 best teams in the country, surely you'd say Georgia's better than Florida State. But then how could it's just, so I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what the criteria is.
I mean, if Georgia happened to lose and then Vegas set odds against Georgia against every other team in the country, we'd be favored against every other team in the country. So
including Alabama in a rematch.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I think the criteria is you put the playoff committee in a room and then they make up whatever crap they need to make up to try to get ratings.
Yeah.
Here's what I know. The winner of Oregon and Washington is in the playoffs.
Correct.
If Michigan wins, they're in the playoffs.
Correct.
The winner of Georgia, Alabama is in the playoffs.
Correct.
If FSU wins, they are in the playoffs.
Correct.
I agree with everything you said about the backup quarterback and they get their ass kicked by everybody else, but the committee is not leaving a 13-0 ACC champ out. Sorry. I also know that if 4 and 5 become Alabama and Texas, they have to take Texas over Alabama, which I agree that might be crazy. But or neutral field, John, Alabama would be favored, but you have to reward head-to-head. Texas beat them by 10 points in Tuscaloosa. They cannot take Alabama over Texas. Those are things that I know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll take the contrarian side of that. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but, what's a better win? An Alabama win over number 1 Georgia, or, a Texas win over a number 8, Alabama. I totally agree with you. I think that that head-to-head absolutely should matter, but it might not. But you know what? It's not going to matter because we're not getting there. Alabama's going to get their ass kicked this weekend, and the committee's going to send a thank you note to Kirby.
That's what they want to have happen, right? I mean, that's the one game where they just have to have happen. Georgia beating
there is a chaos theory out there that with if the chalk loses, the undefeated teams lose, there'll be like 8, 12-1 Power 5 teams. And then all hell will break loose as to who gets in. Then that is a scenario where Georgia could lose and still get in if all 8 teams or if chaos erupts.
It ain't happening, man. Michigan's a 69-point favorite over Iowa. Iowa might not get a first down, and Michigan will win 3-0, something like that. Texas will win. I don't know about Florida State. Josh, to your point, or one of you guys. Louisville, I thought going to the weekend would probably beat them, but then after losing to Kentucky, so yeah, I think probably the 2 that have the best chance at this point of getting in would be Michigan and probably Oregon, who's a 10-point favorite,
9.5. I think it's up to now.
But here's again, as we talked about last week, the best case scenario for the playoff committee is Georgia wins, right? Michigan wins. Doesn't matter Oregon or Washington, but just say Oregon wins for the sake of this discussion, right? And then you've got either a Florida State or a Texas team coming in 4th, depending on that. You get Georgia versus Florida State or Texas in the Sugar Bowl, and you've got the historical matchup between Big Ten and the last year of the Pac-12 and the Rose Bowl. Boom, bam, crash. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see a 12-1 Big 12 champion in their last season of the Big 12, Texas, actually get shafted and not make it in if Florida State wins.
Yeah.
So Nick, as you look at these 5 games, you see these 5 conference championships starting Friday and going into late Saturday night. Which games? Obviously, we'll get to Georgia and Alabama, but of the other ones, where's your eye going to be looking towards?
I mean, I'm pretty excited to watch the Pac-12 championship on Friday night. I mean, it's going to be only game on 5 o'clock. Oh, sorry. 8 o'clock Eastern, boys. My bad. 5 o'clock my time on ABC. My wife has ties to Oregon, so kind of cheer for them. Dan Lanning, I mean, it's like, I don't know if you ever watch him talk, like it's like you can just see the Kirby in him. I don't know. It's just I really like Lanning, and I think that's going to be a pretty good game. And it's what they say, tough to beat the same team twice in one season. So I think that's going to be a pretty great game. And I think what's great about it too is it's winning you're in for sure in that game. I mean, can't really picture a scenario where a winner of that game doesn't get in.
Well, but here, Nick, let me throw something back at you there too, right? I agree with you, first of all. But if you have a 12-1, here's another chaos here. You got a 12-1 Oregon conference champion, 12-1 Texas conference champion, and who gets in over who there? Oh, and a 12-1 Alabama.
And 12-1 Alabama.
Champion.
I know where you're going. Yeah, that's
you've got some real chaos theory there. Again, Georgia's going to save the day because we're kings of the world and better never rest. So all good, but
do you think that the rankings are going to be released on Tuesday or whatever? Do you think where the one loss team stack matters at all for the
No.
Oh, I think it does. I think it does. Well, I think that's the committee's first kind of clue into how they are putting these one-loss teams to the hierarchy.
And as long as Texas remains ahead of Alabama, I think that's kind of their positioning for chaos unfolding.
Correct.
And Oregon's been ahead of both of them the whole season. So, I mean,
but Oregon lost to what is now not a great Washington team, So Alabama's losses arguably would be a less bad loss, I guess, than the Oregon loss to Washington.
But not to change the subject, but I love the comparisons of Washington Huskies to their this year's TCU with the luck they're having in one-score games. So hopefully, if Washington hangs on, maybe they'll be at the ass end of a 65-7 ass kicking in Houston.
I was going to say, feed us the Huskies January whatever in Houston, Texas, and then deal.
I think they call themselves the Dogs too, if I'm not mistaken, which kind of always bugs me a little bit. But
like the Mississippi State sketchy Dogs.
Yeah.
All right, so Georgia, Alabama, the line opened up at 4. Is it gone up to like 5 or 6 now? Lawrence, you're the resident expert. Or is that where we're at?
5.5, and I looked at the total a minute ago. It was like 50 something, 55 over under 55.
Yeah. I love hearing Kirby on the eve of these games, just throwing bouquets and pumping up all these other players and teams. Did you hear what he compared Milroe to today? They asked him to compare him to Tebow, and he goes, no, he's even different than Tebow. He is a bigger, more physical version of Lamar Jackson, is what he's describing Milroe as. That's just what Kirby does, man. I can't wait to watch this game. I know Alabama losing last week would have helped us in the off chance that we lose. But I'm glad they won. Bring them in top 7, wherever they're at, 6, and LFG boys, LFG.
Yeah, listen. Alabama's playing better football. I mean, in spite of last week, they're playing better football than they did at the beginning of the season, and most of that is attributed to Jalen Milroe becoming less shitty. People think that he's running around after that game saying, "Give me the MFing Heisman," which was just preposterous. He is better than he was at the beginning of the season, but his numbers aren't great. Carson Beck's thrown for 1,000 more yards than he has. Not granted, Carson Beck throws the ball more, but the one number that sticks out to me the most, he's only run for 450 yards, Milroe, of the season. And I say only because they make him out again like the second coming of Lamar Jackson there. Carson Beck has taken 8 sacks on the season. Jalen Milroe has taken 34 sacks. And we've talked about this on here before. So look, they've gotten better, but Georgia is by far the more talented team. We've talked about this since the first episode this season. And we talked about it on Saturday. There's maybe 4 players now on Alabama that we would take today over the starters at Georgia. We're a more complete team. The offense is better coached. The defense is better coached. I like the Dogs, and honestly, I like the Dogs to cover, and I think this could be a 2-score game. I think this will be a 2-score game.
I think so. Bama, they got an injury with their running back Jason McClellan. I'm struggling with the four players on their starting their 22 deep that you would take over ours. I know Dallas Turner's probably got to be one of them just because we're like really young at inside linebacker now. But I mean, who else?
Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Really?
Yeah, over Dalen Everett.
I mean, Dalen Everett gets picked on because the other three guys back there can't get touched.
I get that, but their other Alabama's other D-back is Terry Arnold, who's pretty good. Their secondary is good, man. They got Malachi Moore back there and Caleb Downs. Their secondary is the strength of their defense. Their secondary is very good. The only reason I wouldn't take Caleb Downs or Malachi Moore is because who are you going to replace on Georgia's team? Not Malachi Starks or Bullard, right? So those two, Dallas Turner and Kool-Aid McKinstry for sure. You could make an argument that Jermaine Burton would be starting at Georgia today if he were here. And you could also make an argument that, J.C. Latham could play, left tackle over Ernest Green here.
We all love the random Twitter folks that just drop knowledge. Sometimes it's sketchy, sometimes it's made up. But this guy I found today, Jonathan Williams at Dr. J. Will. Y'all heard this guy before?
Is he related to Athens Steve or Chop on Corey?
I think so. Well, anyway, Dr. J. Will, he did drop some serious knowledge, just straight statistics and stats. And he went through everything as common as like scoring offense and scoring defense to points per game against common opponents, against ranked opponents, against like sacks allowed, against explosive plays. I mean, he got extremely in the weeds and all this. I mean, I'm just scrolling, go through.
I saw it, yeah.
And Georgia dominated every single one. Every single statistic. So look, the numbers are there in our favor. We broke the curse on them a couple years ago in Indy. Now we got to get over the hump in Atlanta, MBS. Gans, I'm with you, dude. I think it's a 2-score game. I think that it's I think we just impose our will on them. Kirby exercises the final demon, the final SEC Alabama demon, and then we're on to the Final Four, number one. Hopefully playing FSU in the Sugar Bowl. That's how I see it.
So real quick with sort of the comparisons, just a few things. One thing that I really like, I obviously didn't go through the in-depth analysis that Chop on Corey did or whatever this guy's name, Dr. J-Rob. So 3 common opponents this year, right? Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn. Ole Miss, Alabama 24-10 at home. Ole Miss versus Georgia 52-17 at home. Okay, advantage dogs. Auburn, both injured in hair. Both teams put up 27 points. Alabama 27-24, Georgia 27-20. Obviously, we know how both those games ended. And then Tennessee, this one I found to be pretty interesting. Tennessee Alabama 34-20 in Bryant-Denny. Dogs 38-10 in Neyland. So and then Bama, honestly, they beat A&M, the shitty Aggies, right? When Jimbo was still the coach, so 26-20, right? They beat Arkansas the next week, 24-21 at home. And then, of course, Auburn. We only have 2 one-score games this season. One was this past weekend at Georgia Tech. We already went through that. The other one was Auburn, 27-20. Even Mizzou, which is probably the best team, definitely the best team we played so far this year, was a 2-score game. So all those things make me feel really good. Georgia, there's a reason we're favored by 5.5. And like I said, I'll lay the points.
Something that I heard during the broadcast on Saturday that's kind of surprised me. I don't know why, but Georgia Tech, most points anybody scored against us this season. 23. Yeah. I was like, whoa. I mean, yeah, that's impressive. I feel like our defense has kind of gotten crapped on. I mean, in comparison to our elite defenses of the past, but highest points allowed this season, 23, not too shabby.
So, hey, Nick, because you're on live with me right now, you didn't get a chance to fact check me. I forgot Kentucky. Kentucky was one other common opponent, and they played Kentucky. They beat Kentucky by 4 touchdowns. Obviously, the dogs take to Kentucky. which was just a utter ass kicking 51-13.
So, dude, it's not that he didn't have the chance to fact check you yet. That wasn't part of the program yet.
True.
He was going to do the ESPN stat boy shtick, where at the very,
Right.
very end, he closes the show by pointing out all the mistakes we made. So you just
Fair
took
enough.
away part of it, man.
I covered my ass. I'm just covering my
Yeah,
ass.
good job, buddy.
Like,
So
Just like when you
listen,
said Brian Harsin coached the Auburn last week, right?
he
covered my
may
ass.
as well have. I mean, Jesus, that was awful coaching. I'm with you guys. I think in every analytical way that you can look at this game, Georgia's the dominant team. We're the better team. We should win by a touchdown. I still have MBS PTSD. I'm going to take the Dogs. I think we win. I think it's a close one. I think it's like a 30-27 type game. And the other part that scares me is just a week ago, the public odds when the line was really low was very heavily on Alabama for whatever reason. Then after the Auburn game, right now, as we sit here recording on Monday night, 64% of the wagers are currently in on Georgia. So the Dogs are kind of the heavy public favorites right now at 5.5. I would see that line probably moving up a little bit, but I'm pretty confident we win. I think Bama covers.
So in your scenario with your 30-27 score, Lawrence, with all due respect to Hot Rod and Hot Pod, I feel really good about a close game with our boy Peyton Woodring. I've got all the confidence in the world in that guy, especially kicking in the dome inside. He's come, I mean, on week 1, week 2, we said that's a big concern, big question mark, but I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about him. So even if we're in a close game, I like it.
Stein, speaking of Woodring, there was a video I saw on the interwebs of him warming up, and he was kicking the ball from the end line off the upright, like it was, like a game or something. Like, that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah, he's a stud. He's a stud.
So I'll go ahead and give my score 34-23 Dogs.
I like it.
Lawrence,
I like it.
Lawrence gave something, so I got to put my money where my mouth is.
I'm going more. I'm going 37-21.
I like it. That's my favorite one so far. Nick, you got one?
Where are you? We haven't heard your prediction.
Well, I wasn't prepared to make a prediction. I get all nervous with these games. I most of the time I'm afraid to ever make a prediction because it's like I feel like I'm going to give bad juju, as if me and my sports bar in San Diego has power over,
Only on that
miles
side of the
away.
Mississippi.
He
You're
thinks
fine
he's
on this
Kirk
side of the Mississippi.
Herbstreit. He's Kirk Herbstreit.
Oh, yeah, right.
He can't give his opinion on the score.
I'm calling the game on Saturday, boys. I can't. All right, I'll say Dogs 33, Alabama 26.
All right, we'll take it.
That's a really good score, Nick Adams. That is the 33 from our championship and
That's
the 26 from theirs, huh?
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
I like
that
it
on purpose.
All right. The other reason why I wanted Nick here tonight, other than to enjoy this 30 minutes with him, although we'll probably go longer than 30 minutes, is I need you to give us some calls on the sucker bet and what Lawrence can and cannot do tonight in terms of trying to get himself back to a respectable 500 number. He is 6-8 on the year. The win last week, the Iowa game, I do want to spend some time on it because that under was an epic cover for Lawrence. So look, I told you last week, me and Jason both said, if you wanted to press and you want to get some extra games in, we gave you the right to do it. Nick is the final arbiter of all things. So the left side of the screen, the two of you guys take it from here.
So I'm prepared to pick the board as you put in our outline. So kindly put in our outline. I'm prepared to pick the board. However, there's two games that really fit my sucker bet criteria that I can also pick. So you guys tell me, you want me to go and pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, or you want me to pick the two that I think qualify for sucker criteria?
Nick makes
you make the rules.
All right. So in gambling, one of the great things about gambling is there's always another bet. You can chase, right? Chase. So, 6-8 can turn to what? 10-11-8, right? We could get a winning record after this. So, hey, Larry, I'm all for it, man. Go
In
on,
investing,
go all in.
in investing, that's called catching a falling knife.
What does 6 and 13 look like, Nick?
That looks like Stanford Steve. All right, Alex, you ready? You got your pen ready? Because there's gonna be no erasers here for this one.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. I'm gonna take Iowa plus the points. I'm gonna take the Longhorns laying 11.5 against Mike Gundy. I'm a man, I'm 40. I'm gonna take FSU minus the 4.5 versus Louisville. I already mentioned I'm going to take Bama plus the points, but the dogs to win outright.
Boo.
Puke.
The game that I feel qualifies for sucker bet criteria on the board, the most obvious one is the massive number that Oregon is laying. It almost makes no sense to not take Washington. They're undefeated. They've already beat them once, and they're getting more than a touchdown. So I'm taking the Ducks. I think Washington is a sucker play. I'm going to take the Ducks laying 8.5. And then just one for fun, we're going to throw on top of here. Tulane is minus 5.5, and the public is heavy on SMU. And so I'm going to take the Green Wave and what's his name? Willie Salucci, their coach. What's his name? Willie. What's his name? Willie. I'm taking the Green Wave and Willie.
Paul Booth Willie.
Willie Salucci, R.I.P., isn't he? Did we officially get the Larry six-pack? Gans, did he give us a full six-pack just now?
Yeah, I love him. I love him. He's going to start betting WNBA.
All right. It's memorialized. So you need to go 4-2 to end up at 500.
4-2 to end up at 500. I need to go 5-1 to win money.
There you go. All right, Jason. What did you decide? Last week we said we were going to play this Jimbo out for the end of the season. You still want to do that?
Yeah, it's going to be a quick one this week. I think everyone knows where we're going with this. It's Brian Harsin for the second week in a row. Hugh Freeze. I heard a statistic on SEC final that said as far back as they could go, whenever a team was facing 4th and goal from 25 plus yards, they were 0 for 90. They are now 1 for 91. The statistical odds of converting that were less than 0.1%. Not to rehash what Nick and Laurence already said in terms of 2 guys rushing and a spy. It basically reminded me of playing football in the backyard growing up, where you just stay back there with the automatic quarterback and you wait for someone to run open. That is what they did. It really was coaching malpractice, Laurence. It was just an absolute. You follow up a historical loss against New Mexico State with a historical loss against Alabama. That we might have to rename the award to the Brian Harsin Freeze for next year.
So I can't disagree with where you're coming from. I would have probably stuck a little closer to home because it affected us so much. Just the ticket takers.
Oh God,
Georgia Tech Stadium. You got in. It sounds like you got in easier than we did, but ours was an absolute disaster. So that's if I'm giving out the award, that's who I give it to.
So hey, I thought you were going to go, Gans. I thought you were going to go in the direction of Texas A&M and Ross Bjork again with their quick call on Mike Stoops. Or Mark Stoops, whichever, the Kentucky Stoops brother, and then the subsequent Aggie revolt, which cost him to go take his ball and go home and end up with their second or third choice.
I considered that, but just the historical nature of the 0 for 90 and just that meltdown was superseded that. But more to that story, they apparently had interviewed Jed Fish and were going to make an offer to Jed Fish. He was kind of an up-and-comer, the coach of Arizona. And then apparently Bjork just decided to do a 180 and kind of go rogue and try to hire Stoops. And then, of course, as we talked about before, the internal fighting between Board of Regents people, they can't get out of their own goddamn way there. Then they floated his name, got shit canned, and then they go with Mike Elko. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference today, but I just saw a Twitter thing from it. They all put their arms around each other, started swaying back and forth and chanting something. So they are strange folk.
Can we give an honorable mention to old Sunbelt Billy and Florida? Yeah. I'm not sure if you guys saw the stat, but the fourth quarter statistics in that Florida State game, Florida minus 15 yards, 50 yards of penalties, no points, pretty brutal. I actually went back and watched because they were up 12-0, had just sacked Rodemaker in the end zone, and got the ball after the little free kick on the other side of the 40, and decided to run a flea flicker toss that resulted in intentional grounding, resulted in them having to give the ball back to Florida State. We're stopping them, and then one of their players spit on a Florida State player, got ejected, continued to drive. Florida State scored a touchdown, and it just kind of went from there. But
the last time Florida State went to a bowl game, Georgia hadn't won a national championship in 40 years. To put things in perspective, Sunbelt Billy is now 10-14 in 2 years. Of course, after Dan Mullen's disastrous 2021 season, that program is in bad shape.
So Nick, I will allow the honorable mention. Very well done. And let me just thank you for coming on and spending this time with us this evening. We appreciate your contributions to the podcast all year long. You are the man. We kind of tongue in cheek said, Stat Boy come in and correct us what we did wrong. I don't know, man. Anything that we said so far today?
I think I had 3 things written down. I think Gans said earlier that we were up 31-13, going to 38-13. It was actually 31-16, and it would have become 38-16.
I don't think I'm going to check that. I'm going
to. You're going to fact check the fact checker? You can't triple stamp a double stamp.
Incorrect. You are incorrect, my friend.
It was 31-16.
It was 31-13 before they kicked that field goal to go 31-16.
All right. Yeah. The other one that so Larry said that Kentucky was a 6-win team. They're 7-5, and then the head coach of Tulane, Willie Fritz. That's his name.
Close enough.
He had a dalliance actually with Georgia Tech. They tried to they were going to hire him, I think, and then I don't know what happened. They couldn't get him.
Willie Fritz sounds like a guy who's 75 years old, likes to hang out at the Indian Hills bar, starting to drink some sort of fruity cocktails at 2 p.m.
So real quick, Nick, I think on yours it was 31. I think I might have not misspoke, but I think there's some communication gone awry there. Okay. It was 31-13. At one point going into the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And then, okay. And then when we threw an interception, it might have been 31-16. So miscommunication there.
Okay.
Which I think are most of our issues. Though I'm sure I've screwed up many things here at this podcast. Never my prediction though.
No.
Nick, you are a damn national treasure, my friend. A national treasure. We appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate you guys.
We also appreciate all the listeners out there that have stuck with us through 13 weeks. Look, guys, I want to be back here next Monday night talking about Georgia SEC champs again and heading to the playoffs. That's all I want to have happen. It's going to happen. Everybody out there, enjoy your week. Go Dogs. Appreciate you guys listening. Thank you guys for spending time with us. See you next week. Peace out.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.